Hello, welcome to Horseshoe Politics. Today is September 8th, 2020, and in this video, I'll be talking about some of the problems with the Electoral College and what we can do to fix those problems. I kind of hinted to this video yesterday. In yesterday's video, I kind of hinted that I would make this video. I actually just thought of it while I was making yesterday's video, today's topic. And today's topic will be talking about what the problem with the Electoral College is, the problem that I see with it, and what we can do to fix that problem. So, first, let me show you this map. This map is the map of the 2016 election. Donald Trump got 306 electoral votes, and Hillary Clinton got 232 electoral votes. Despite losing in the Electoral College, Hillary Clinton won the popular vote. Hillary Clinton got more votes than Donald Trump, but even though she got more actual votes, she got fewer votes in the Electoral College, and that's why Trump became president and not Clinton. Now, a lot of people, they say that the Electoral College is the problem. They say that the Electoral College needs to be abolished and that it should just be the popular vote that determines the winner. Other people say that the way that we have it right now, the system that we have now, that's what the founding fathers wanted, so we need to keep it how it is. And what I'm proposing is a middle of the road solution to the problem. It won't go all the way in one direction or all the way the other. I'm not advocating for completely abolishing the Electoral College, but I'm also not advocating for keeping things how they are. I want to make some changes to the Electoral College without abolishing it. So, before I talk about what that solution to the problem is, I first want to show you two maps, and this is the first map. The map of the 2016 presidential election, where Donald Trump got 306 electoral votes to Hillary Clinton's 232. Now, a lot of the people who are in favor of abolishing the Electoral College, they claim that the problem with the Electoral College is the fact that every state gets two extra electoral votes regardless of population. So even states like Wyoming and Montana get three electoral votes when if it was only based by population, they'd only get one. This has to do with the fact that each state has two senators and then more House of Representatives members based on their population. So each state's electoral votes is based on the number of House of Representatives members plus the number of Senate members. So it's two plus House of Representatives members because each state has two senators. That means states like Wyoming, who have one Congress member, have three electoral votes because 1 plus 2 is 3. But states like Texas, who have 38 electoral votes, they have 36 members in Congress and 2 in the Senate. 36 plus 2 is 38. So it was a way for the founding fathers to kind of balance out the smaller states with the bigger states to make sure that the bigger states don't overpower the smaller states. But a lot of people who oppose the Electoral College, they cite this as the problem. But I still think there's a problem with the Electoral College, but I don't think that specifically is the problem. I think there's some other issue at play. And that issue will become apparent when I show you this second map. This is the second map that I wanted to show you. It's the map of the 2016 election with all the states that Trump won in red, all the states that Clinton won in blue, but there's a slight difference. Each state, instead of being given the full amount of electoral votes, each state has two electoral votes taken away from them, so that each state's electoral votes corresponds completely to population size. So states like Wyoming and Montana only have one electoral vote, but states like California still have 53. As you may see, Trump, who I've labeled as Republican, still beats Clinton in this scenario, even when the electoral votes are distributed directly proportional to population. So that shows that the problem is not the fact that smaller states get extra electoral votes. The problem is actually with the way that the electoral votes are distributed within each state. See, the way that the electoral votes are distributed in every state, with the exception of Nebraska and Maine, is just where the person who gets the most votes in that specific state wins all the electoral votes of that state. So Hillary Clinton won the most amount of votes in California in 2016, which means she got all 55 of those electoral votes. Trump won the majority of votes in Texas, so he got all 38 of those electoral votes. But I see that as very problematic, and here's why. The way that the system's set up, getting 0% is basically the same as getting 49%. If you get 0%, you get no votes. If you get 49%, you get no electoral votes. So getting 0% is the same as getting 49%, and getting 51% is getting the same as 100%, because as long as you get a majority, you get all the electoral votes no matter what. What this means is that states like California, who lean pretty heavily Democratic, the extra votes above 50% that vote for Democrats, they don't matter, because you only need 50% in the state to win that state. So if California only had 60% Democrats, they would still it would still be the same outcome as if they had 80% Democrats. Meaning that extra 20% who also voted for Democrats but that were above the majority, they did not their vote didn't really matter because they could have just not shown up and they still would have the outcome of the election would have still been the same. California would have won all the electoral votes. The other issue with this system is the fact that candidates only have an incentive to campaign in swing states, the states that are close to leaning one way or close to leaning the other way. Because states that are safe in one way or the other, safe Democratic or safe Republican, the problem with those states is that the candidates know that either they're going to win all the votes or the opponent's going to win all the votes because they know that it's going to be easy to get a majority, and as long as they get a majority they get every single electoral vote in that state, so there's no incentive to campaign there at all because regardless of what they do in that state they're going to get all the electoral votes or their opponent gets all the electoral votes, so they only bother campaigning in swing states, which usually states like Ohio, Florida, Pennsylvania, and then recently it was also Michigan and Wisconsin and Minnesota. But that makes it so that the candidates ignore most of the states, big and small. The candidates usually ignore California and Texas, but they also ignore states like Montana, Wyoming, and Idaho. So, proponents of the Electoral College, the way it is now, they claim that it promotes candidates campaigning more in small states, but that's really not what it does under the current system. And the reason is not because smaller states get more votes, it's the matter of the winner take all system. If you win the majority of votes, you get all the electoral votes in that state. So as long as you're above 50%, which states like Montana, Idaho, and Wyoming, they easily lean towards the Republicans. Neither candidate has any incentive to campaign in those states, so they just don't bother with those states and spend their time focusing on states like Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Florida. So, what is the solution to this? I would say the solution to this is for each state to allocate their electoral votes proportionally to the percentage that each candidate gets in that state. Nebraska and Maine, they already sort of do this, but it's not necessarily based on proportion of the vote that each candidate gets. It's based on congressional districts. Now, this may seem like it's the same thing, but it's not. The problem with congressional districts is that they're often gerrymandered to favor one party or another in the elections. So I don't think congressional districts are the best way to divide up the electoral votes. I would say a better way is to just do it as close as possible based on the proportion of the votes that each candidate got. So let's say in Texas, let's say it has 38 electoral votes. If a candidate gets 60% of the vote in that state, they would get 60% of the electoral votes in that state. Obviously, 38 isn't divisible by 5, so you'd have to round. So 40 divided by 5 is 8 times 3 is 24. So a candidate who won 60% of the vote in Texas would win around 24-ish electoral votes, and the other candidate would win the others 14-ish. The math won't exactly be perfect, but it's the best possible system that there is in order to fairly divide up the electoral votes in each state. Because otherwise, you have the system that we have now, where most states are ignored and only the swing states matter. And also, votes that are above the 50% margin are wasted because 50% is the same as 100%, 0% is the same as 49%. The reason why I think this is a great compromise is because of how it meets both sides of the argument in the middle. It doesn't completely get rid of the Electoral College, and my proposal still makes it so that the smaller states can keep those 2 additional electoral votes, because the Electoral College is a part of the Constitution, and the Founding Fathers wanted it so that the smaller states had slightly extra representation so that they wouldn't get overpowered by the big states. But my proposal also is able to fix some of the problems that currently exist in the Electoral College and make it so that the results of the Electoral College are more proportional to the popular vote and make it so that no one can win the popular vote by a big margin without winning the Electoral College also. So I think my proposal meets both sides in the middle, not abolishing the Electoral College but also reforming it to make it more proportional. So I think that this is a compromise that people from both sides can get behind, and I'm hoping that this is a proposal that more people can start to advocate for, because I don't think the Electoral College should be completely get rid of. I think there's a reason why we have it, but I also completely understand where people who want to get rid of it are coming from, because of the fact that it's not really representative of how people vote. The Electoral College results aren't necessarily proportional of how the people actually vote in the election, and also the fact that a lot of states get ignored in the election seasons. Like, I live in Texas, it's a really big state, so You would think that both candidates would spend a lot of time campaigning there, but up until now, it's been a solidly Republican state, so neither candidate has really bothered much with campaigning in that state because both candidates know it's going to go towards the Republican candidate. So the Republicans don't bother campaigning there because they know they're going to win, and the Democrats don't bother campaigning there because they know they're going to lose there. But I think with my system, they're going to with my system, both candidates will have much bigger incentive to campaign in states that are not swing states. Because even if you go above the 50% margin, since the electoral college votes are proportional to the popular vote, the amount of popular votes in each state, getting a 60% is more than getting 50%, and getting 80% will get you more electoral votes than getting 60%. So even if you go above that 50% mark in each state, you get rewarded for going above and beyond. That's just how I see it. I hope that more people can get behind my policy proposal. I hope it can catch on soon because I think it's a great way to make a compromise between both sides and not make too drastic of a change. See, you don't have to change the constitution or anything. It's just something that happens at the state level. Each state has to decide that they want to allocate their electoral votes based on how what percentage of the vote each candidate gets. Anyway, I hope I could provide some great insight onto this issue. I hope that you guys can think about it more, research on your own about the issue. I hope I see you guys tomorrow. See ya.